Hello and welcome to video number 4 in this Getting Started series. My name is Dave Briley-Jones, and in this video we're going to be looking at how we automatically download and import files that we may need to ingest on a weekly, daily, or even hourly basis. In the previous videos, if you've just joined us, we've looked at importing and managing audio through the Playout One system and Auto Importer. And this time around, we want to be able to set up a automatic download and import those files on a schedule. Now, typical use cases may be we have a news bulletin that arrives in a Dropbox account, and we want to import that onto the same cart each hour, for example. Also, we're going to look at how we download files from an FTP site, whereby the file name changes every week. Perhaps it has a date in it, perhaps it has the week number in it. We have an application called File Copy that can handle all of this automatically. It's so cool. You set it up once and you forget about it. So let's get started, shall we? First of all, we're going to take a look at how we import a news bulletin every single hour. Now, the first thing we want to do here is we want to create our news bulletin cart because it doesn't exist. And the way we do that is here in Playout One Pro. Now, for the purpose of this, I'm going to actually go and create a new type. I'm going to create a news type in here. And the reason I want to create a news type is because I actually want to have it in a different color. I'm going to have it in this red and with white text. Now, the scheduler type for this is still going to be production. There we go. So I'm going to save that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the little plus here in the media finder top left-hand corner to create a new cart. And I actually know the UID I want for this. I'm going to actually call it news. That's going to be my UID. That's the UID I'm going to be scheduling in my scheduler. Now the title, I'm going to call it News Bulletin. And I'm going to leave the artist blank. There's a reason I want to leave the artist blank. And that is because I'm going to get Auto Importer, when it imports the piece of audio, to actually stamp in the date and time that it imported into the system. That way, when I'm looking at it in the log, I can quite clearly see visually when the last news bulletin was imported and if it's old or not. Now, the type's going to be news, and that's going to do me. I'm going to save that. So we haven't attached any audio to it. So if we go down and find it in the list here, there it is, news bulletin. You can see there's no audio attached to it because there is no green little audio icon in the media finder in the first column. That tells us there is no audio. So that's our news bulletin cart created. Now we need to go to Auto Importer, because Auto Importer is going to ingest this into Playout One. Now what's going to happen is we're going to utilize File Copy. File Copy is going to go grab the file, it's going to rename it, and then it's going to place it into a folder that Auto Importer is looking at, and then it's going to ingest it. So before we can set up File Copy, we need to set up Auto Importer, because File Copy needs a place to dump the audio into, if you get my drift. So we're going to create a new Auto Importer group, and I'm going to call it News. Now, in video number 2, when we created our new songs and new production import profiles, we set the import method to be new UID. This time round, we're going to choose specific UID because we want to import onto that news UID every time. So what Auto Importer will do here is it will look at the file it's importing and it will derive the UID from the file name. Now, import folder. Remember in video 2, we said always keep your import folders all together. It makes managing things very simple. And the way we find where our import folders are is if we go to Playout One and we go up to the launcher and over to settings. We're going to copy the data location. And then if I just right click here and choose run, it's already there from last time. There we go. Paste it in there. And then if we go up one to the Playout One folder, and then there's our import folder. And now I can create my news folder. News folder. News. There we go. That will do. Okay, so we've got our news. And now what I need to do is go into there, and I'm going to paste it into my import folder. Okay, let's go ahead now and set some options. So in the options tab here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to preserve the title. So if you remember, if we go back to Playout 1, our news bulletin here is on UID News, and we've called it News Bulletin. I always want it to say News Bulletin. I don't want any metadata that is embedded within the file we're downloading and importing, overwriting that. So that's why I'm preserving the title. The type, I'm not going to bother with preserving the type because we're going to set that in the overrides. The rest of this is okay. In the audio details, I'm going to normalize. I'm also going to set the audio as a fade, and I'm going to set the extra. In the overrides tab, I'm going to select news as the type. And then I'm going to alter the extra threshold here. The reason I'm altering the extra threshold is because -12 is geared up for songs. So it sort of places your extra just as the song's fading. Now, because this is a news bulletin, I really don't want the extra being placed just as the newsreader is finishing their last word. So I'm going to back this off and slacken it, and we're going to go down to -20. That way, the extra should go just at the very, very end. Now, in the title overrides section here, I can't set a title because I'm preserving the title from the options page, but I can set an artist. And if I hover over the artist, it tells me if we go to help.playout1.com, we can actually see a list of placeholders that we can set. So let's do that. So I'm just going to open a little browser here. And I'm going to go to help.playout1.com. Okay, so I'm going to go to Auto Importer. I'm going to placeholders. And here we can see a list of placeholders that we can set in this box. Now, what I want to do, if I just bring up the Auto Importer box here, I am going to set my artist to be the date. So if we find here, we've got two options for the date. You can either have it in the UK format or the US format. For the purposes of this, I'm going to choose the US format. So let's copy that and pop it in there. And then I'm going to have some brackets, and I'm going to have the time. So we can see here we've got two options for the time, 24-hour or the 12-hour. For the purposes of this, again, I'm going to choose the 12-hour. There we go. So the artist is going to be populated with the date in US format and the time in 12-hour format. So I'm going to hit save on that now. So that's set up, ready to go. We'll minimize help.playout1.com as we don't quite need that right now. Next, let's go find file copy and let's set up file copy, shall we? And it's probably worth just noting here, what are we trying to do? Well, what we've got here is we've got a Dropbox folder, which is here, and there's a folder called news, and there's a file called news. This is updated every hour. What we want to do is we want to get that into Playout 1. So let's go set it up in file copy. So job, I'm going to call this news. And in the source tab here, this is telling me, okay, where is your file? Tell me where to go get your file. And there's a plethora of options you can set here, from files to folders to FTP, internet. We can record the file if we want to. So many options. For this purpose, it's a single file. So I'm going to go select that file from my Dropbox. There it is. And I'm going to next click the rename tab. Now, this is where we can actually rename it if we want to, from news to something else. We don't need to in this case because our UID is news. But let's say our UID wasn't news. Let's say it was, I don't know, car 123. We could say, please rename it here to car 123. As I say, we don't need to do that. But for the purpose of this, let's just rename it anyway again to news. Now, the destination, it's going to be Auto Importer. And this is why we had to set the Auto Importer folder up first. Now we can go select it from the news drop down here. You've got an option to copy file or move file. I'd be very wary about moving the file if other people are trying to also access that particular file. So for this instance, I'm going to just copy it. On the schedule section here, I'm going to do this. Well, it's going to start at about, let's see here, 55. There we go. So it's going to start at 12:55 a.m. every day, and we're going to repeat that every single hour. Now, we've got some additional options in here that we can set. We could email if there was a problem. We could put an email address in there. We could also reschedule the job if there was a problem. For this purpose, I'm not going to set any of these. I'm just going to go back here and I'm going to say, please also schedule this weekdays only. In fact, no, let's go for all of them. I'm going to say add job. Okay, so there's our job and it's in the system. So it's next going to run at 10:55 p.m. I'm not going to wait for that. What I'm going to do is show you how we can manually run this. So if I just open up a new little tab here and we go back to our import folder. Let's set this up. So we've got there, and there's our file copy. So when I hit run, it's going to copy this file, rename it to news. It's already news, but for the purpose of showing you, it's going to copy it from there to there. Auto importer is going to import it, and then we should be able to see it in playout 1. That's the theory anyway. So let's hit run. There we go. It tells me it's copied it. And if we go and have a look at auto importer in just a second, there it is. It's lighting up. So it's now importing. Wait for this to happen. And now it's imported. Now you'll see it's vanished from the news import folder. It's probably sat and imported. Yes, there it is. And if we go back to playout 1, there's our news bulletin. And there is the date. So the date is in US format. So it's the 9th of January, 2021, 10:24, 33 seconds PM. So straight away, if we were to have that in the log, we could see straight away now that that news bulletin is 100% up to date. Now, Auto Importer also has some other features if we just go back into news. There's also a little tab here called Day Part and Dates. And what we could do is we could actually set an end date on this news if we wanted to. We could say enable, set end date, and offset the end date. And then you can choose days, hours, or minutes after it imports. So, for example, if we wanted to make sure we always had the most up-to-date news, and if we didn't want to play the news bulletin, we could say offset the end date, please, by 0 hours, and that would expire at the top of the next hour. So quite useful for doing if you want to make sure that you always play the latest news, and if you don't get the latest news, you don't want to play it at all. So that's a simple one. That's how we set up a news bulletin. How do we, though, go about downloading from an FTP site, and how do we go about downloading multiple files, not just multiple files, but when they've got changing dates in the file names? Well, let's go take a look. So I'm going to close these two windows here, and I'm just going to minimize file copy for a second and bring up FileZilla. So I've logged into our FTP site, and we're going to be downloading the Alice Cooper Show. It's a weekly show, and it's a syndicated show. It's uploaded to an FTP site every week. So if we look in the Alice Cooper folder here, you'll see that they've got these folders, week, and then there's a couple of digits afterwards. Now, the syndicator has told us that the first 2 digits are the year. So you can see 20 and then 21 and 21. And the second 2 digits are the week number. Now, who knew that you could have 53 weeks in a year? But you absolutely can. So you can see the very last week of 2020. And then you can see week number 1 for 2021 and week number 2 for 2021. Now, if we go into these folders, we're going to be looking at this particular one here, week 1 of 2021. You'll see there's a number of files in here. And again, the syndicator has told us that these digits change. And we can see show 21, that's the year. And then 01 is the week number. We then got digit 6, which apparently is always in there. NWAC, hour 01, segment 01. Wow. How on earth do we download this? This is a nightmare. And there's plenty of stations out there right now still downloading it by hand every single week. With file copy, not a problem. So let's begin. How many segments do we have? Well, let's have a look here. If we just highlight these, we have 16 files in total. So the first thing we need to do, as we did with the news bulletin, is we need to go and create our 16 segments for file copy to import into. Now, the way that we would do this is we would literally replicate what we did with the news bulletin. Now, I'm going to go into the launcher here, and I'm going to go to the type manager, And I'm going to create one more type, and that type is for pre-recorded shows. If I could type properly. And this time I'm going to color it. I'm going to go for this. I guess it's is it a fuchsia? Fuchsia. Does that blue? Oh, that's a horrible blue, but let's not do that. Let's go for white, shall we? There we go. We can see it a lot better. Now, for the scheduling type, I'm going to go for production because there's voice, there's production, there's songs in it. It's not a clear-cut song. It's a piece of production in my book, so I'm going to hit save. Now, this is where things slightly differ from the news bulletin. I'm not going to sit here creating 16 segments. No. I'm going to work out where they're going to go. So let's see here. I've got space on my media finder. I'm going to basically go from cart 21 for segment 1, and then I'm going to basically add on 16. So that would be up to cart 37. I'm not going to sit here in the media finder and create them though. We're going to let auto importer and file copy do the work, and then we'll do some clever renaming afterwards. So let's just keep that in mind. Cart 21 is the first one, and then cart 37 is going to be the last one. Now, we've not created an auto importer group yet, so we're going to go do that for our pre-recorded shows. It's going to follow largely the same pattern as the news. So let's go and find our location where we have those folders. There we are. And we'll call this pre-recorded shows. Once this is set up, any pre-recorded shows can come in through here, if you like. There we go. So I'm going to go to new. I'm going to call this pre-recorded shows. It's going to be a specific UID again, because this time file copy is going to rename the files to the correct cart numbers, as they're not titled correctly on the FTP. Pop in our pre-recorded shows. There it is. That's the folder. Now in option, again, we are going to preserve the title, even though it's not set yet. We are going to normalize. We're going to set the audio as a fade, and we're going to set the extra. In the override section here, we're going to choose pre-recorded shows. That's our type. And then just like we did with the news, we're going to dial back the extra detection a little bit. And just as we did with the news bulletin, we're going to set the artist to be the date and the title. Time. So let's go back to help.playout1. This time I'm just going to do the UK format. So it's going to be time. And we open up the brackets. And then we need to go back to here. And I put it in the wrong place, haven't I? It's actually date. There we go. So that needs to go there. And then we wrap the brackets around there. Beautiful. Okay. I'm going to save that. So there is our pre-recorded shows auto import profile. Now let's go to file copy and work out how we do this. So we're going to add a new job, and it's going to be Alice Cooper. Now the source is going to be FTP, so we need to start filling out these details here. Now I always check this in FileZilla first. One, because FileZilla is free, so you can download it and verify the credentials work, but you also get to see the files and how they look. So our host here, for the purpose of this demo, is actually just localhost because it's running locally, but this is going to be something like ftp.something.com or .co.uk or .net. Usually you want to tick passive. That's always needed generally in most cases. If you don't tick passive, you're probably going to end up with a connection problem. So it's classic hits, or chits for just short. Now the folder is really important. We're going to go back to FileZilla here, and this is the folder we want. So I'm just going to copy it from here, which makes it nice and simple. However, we want to use this every week. We don't have to keep coming in here and swapping, week 2101 for week 2102. So how do we do that? Well, we have a number of different parameters we can put in here. Placeholders, again, just similar to the auto importer. The first one is the year. Now, if we go back to help.playout1.com, and this time we go to file copy, and let's look at placeholders. We got loads of different placeholders here we can put in. So we could use year 2, for example. That returns the year back as YY. And if we look at how we have it currently set up here, it's a 2-digit year, YY, that would work. Or we have what we call, if we scroll down a little bit, date add. And date add basically allows us to use the Microsoft date format. And this is really, really quite cool. Because dates can come in various different formats. They can be 2020, they could be just 20. If we were in 2020, we're obviously in 2021 now. You may also be working with months and things like that. So I always recommend using the date add. So the way that the date add works is you simply go into the document here and work out what you need. So we need the year. So if we scroll down a bit further, here it is. We want year. So I'm going to take YY. That's what I need. I'm going to put YY there. And to tell file copy to replace it with the 2-digit year, we wrap these curly brackets around it like so. Next, how do we get the week number? Well, the way we get the week number is if we again go back to the placeholders and we just go down here a little bit. Let's see what we've got. Here we go. Here's how we get the week number. So there's 2 options for the week number. There is just week number, which returns the calendar week number. And there is broadcast week number. That returns the broadcast week number, which is generally the week number -1. Now, we've been told it's the week number. And the way that the week number is formatted, it would appear, if we just go and have a look here. Wrong app. It's a 2-digit week number, 01. So if we go back here, returns the calendar week number padded with zeros. That's the one we want. If it was just 1, as in no 0 on the front, it would be this one over here, just week number. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to put that in there like that. Hurrah! So every time we download this every week, it's going to swap out those little placeholders for the current values. So next week, it would be 2103 for week 03. Next, we're going to click multiple files and we're going to go into select files. And this is where we can start downloading all of our files. So let's just go back to FileZilla here. I'm going to keep this open. We can just make it over here. Make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Get rid of some of this. We don't need it. So here's our files. So I'm going to take the first file. And the way I do it is I hit rename. Be very careful and do a Control-C to copy. And then we can put the first one in here. And what we want to do is we want to, again, change out these values here, just as we did on the folder. So the year there, so if we put the curly brackets around it, it's going to be the YY for the 2-digit year. And then we want to substitute that for our week number value, which is this one here. Brilliant. And then we have our hour 1, segment 1. Now we want to rename this to be, what was it? It was, gosh, I can't remember, 21, cart 21. That's going to be our cart 21. So I'm going to rename that and I'm going to hit add. So there it is. And then next I'm going to click on it. I'm going to hit duplicate. And I'm going to swap this out for number 2, segment number 2, and that's going to be 22. So we go 2, 3, so there's 3 segments each hour. So how many hours have we got here? We've got 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, 5 hours, 3 segments each. So we're going to have more cart numbers, aren't we? Are we going to have more cart numbers? Oh, I don't know. Maths was never my strong point. Let's just keep going. So we're going to duplicate this, and it's going to be hour 1, segment 3, 23. I know it may seem a lot of work, but hey, you only have to do it once. And it's done forever. Duplicate. That's where you get a little lost. 26. I'm curious to know if we're going to have the right number of cards. I can't do the maths. My brain's hurting as we speak. Don't try and talk to someone while you do this as well. You'll get so out of kilter. That's going to be 28. It's going to be 29. Lost my speed. Hour 4, seg 1. Hour 4, seg 2. Hour 4, seg 3. Hour 5, seg 1. No. See, I nearly lost it then. I nearly lost my place. Hour 5, seg 2. Hour 5, seg 3. Oh, we did it. High five, everybody. Ooh, there we go. Excellent. Now, what I want to quickly show you is, here's all our files that we said, and they should pretty much match up. If I hit preview, it's going to show you what it's going to match to. So let's just have a look. Show 2101, yep. 6, NWAC, H03, SO2. Yeah, perfect. Excellent. So we turn the preview off. And what we can do now is if we go back here, we can hit save. Destination time, we're going to pile these out to auto importer. And we're going to download this every, I don't know, Thursday at midnight, because the show goes up on a Wednesday. We download it on a Thursday. I can check it on a Friday before I leave the office, as the show goes out at the weekend. Okay. There we go. So it's next going to run at midnight on Thursday. However, we're not going to wait that long. We're going to test this out and see how it works. So I'm going to hit the run button here. And straight away, it's telling me, yes, that worked. Show segment number 1, show segment number 2, show segment number 3, hour 2, seg 1. Brilliant. This is great. Yes. 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 And we'll just keep clicking OK. I'll tell you how to turn this bit off once you've tested it. OK, so let's go and check Auto Importer here. And they're starting to import. We'll wait for them to import, then we'll check them in Playout 1. Okay, so our files have imported, and just for reference, if you don't want to have to click the message boxes a gazillion times when you test out your file copy, then all you can do is go into the settings here, and you can tick the no message boxes on manual run, and that will prevent all those boxes popping up. But when you first run the test, you may just want to keep them on there just to confirm everything's running. Okay, so if we now go and take a look at Playout 1, we can see here are all our files. However, they're missing titles. So how do we correct that? Well, you don't have to type in individually all 16 different titles. We have something in the bulk utilities which makes this very, very simple indeed. So how do we do it? Well, first of all, we know that there are 5 hours and there are 3 segments per hour. So I'm going to highlight each little segment here. So that's our first hour. And I'm going to go into the bulk operations and I'm going to type in Alice Cooper, hour 1, seg. And then this is where I want to replace my curly bracket and my exclamation mark with a number. I'm going to copy that for later. And then I'm going to tick this box here, replace curly bracket, exclamation mark, close curly bracket with auto number. And we're going to start the auto number at number 1. So if we hit run operations, there we go. Alice Cooper, hour 1, seg 1, seg 2, seg 3. And then we're going to do the same for the next batch. Now that's why I copied from before. Hour 2. Let's go further down here. Hour 3. Hour 3, there we go. Hour 4. And then finally, we're going to do hour 5. And that's it. That is our Alice Cooper show set up. So instead of downloading 16 parts every single week, we've now configured it in file copy, in auto importer, and we've got our Alice Cooper segments downloading now and importing automatically, giving us time to do something else. Hope that's been useful. If you have any questions on specifics, then don't hesitate to email support@playout1.com. Perhaps you're struggling to figure out, which parameters, which placeholders to put in. Support@playout1.com. Our support team will be only too happy to help. Right, that's audio. We're now going to move on to look at the Playout 1 Pro log. That's video number 4. So I will see you over on the other side.